This is Stigma, where we talk with leaders from many industries about how mental health and addiction have impacted their lives. Many people suffer silently from mental illness, addiction, depression, anxiety, and trauma. They never seek help because of stigma. In this podcast, host Stephen Hayes and his guests share their stories of recovery in order to encourage others to do the same. Here's Stephen.
Welcome back to the Stigma Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Hayes, and today I have with me the founder of Praycom, Steve Gatena. Steve's really special to me because he was one of the first founders to let What If Ventures invest in his business, and they've done really well since we've invested, and they've really touched a lot of lives and helped a lot of people. And he's here today to tell you a little bit about his amazing personal journey of how he found his way to building the digital home of faith, which is Praycom, and what that journey's been like and where they're going in the future. And I'm really excited to get to share this conversation with you. So without further ado, Steve, thanks so much for coming on, man. I've been really excited to get to have this conversation with you and share it with our audience.
I'm super excited to be here, Stephen. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Yeah. So I wanted to have you start, if you wouldn't mind, with a little bit of bio background and kind of how you found your way into the world of startups and building a faith-based app called Pray.com.
Absolutely. You know, the way I think about it is really, I pull it back and I think, what's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? And for billions of people around the world, they share one answer in common. They pray. And do you know how many religious people there are in the world, Stephen? Any chance you know offhand?
I know that it's billions because I've seen your deck, but I don't know the exact number.
It's 6 billion. So there's 500 million Buddhists, 1.2 billion Hindus, 1.8 billion Muslims, 2.4 billion Christians. And at Pray.com, all of them are our customers, even if they don't know it yet. And you and I both know that technology is reshaping every industry worldwide, right? You and I both know that connectivity is instant online. And what most people listening don't know is that religion is booming. Religion is booming. Connectivity is instant. Technology is reshaping every industry. And Pray.com is changing the world by building the future of faith, right? We're reorganizing the way people experience their faith and their religion. And we're helping people incorporate prayer into their daily life. And so that's what Pray.com is. Pray.com is the digital destination for faith.
Wow, that's incredible. How did you come to want to build that? What was the story that kind of brought you to that place?
So I was born to a single Jewish mom on welfare. My mom is Jewish. My dad is Catholic. And I was raised essentially by my grandma dragging me to Catholic church on Sundays. And I wasn't really into it when I was a little kid. By the time I was in high school, I had fully opted out of Catholic church. Eventually, I went to the University of Southern California. That's where I went to college. And I got to play football for Coach Pete Carroll. Had the opportunity to win a Rose Bowl. It was incredible. It was a dream come true. And along this path of becoming a college football player, really, I learned that believing, right, was the key to receiving everything that life has to offer you, even in a world of unknowns. So while I was a senior in college, the Great Recession hit, right? It was 2008. It marked a time of technological change. There was extraordinary uncertainty. And frankly, the economy was crashing. There was brand new technologies like YouTube. And YouTube really sparked my vision for a changing world. as a senior in college, this vision I had for the future, it included everybody basically having a TV in their hand, right? Media on demand. There was an entire world that you could access from a smartphone and from YouTube. And I saw this future and I started a company. I am a serial entrepreneur. I started a few companies before Pray.com. And my first idea for my first company was essentially a company that made professional YouTube videos for corporations. So I built this production company and we built out all the online video channels for companies like Amgen, Red Bull, and Amazon. And this was really my first foray into entrepreneurship. And it was my first foray into media, learning how to create content, learning how content distribution worked. Really, that was my first opportunity to achieve success as an entrepreneur and achieve material success. And in 2015, I took a leap of faith and sought to go bigger. And I sold my company and I became the CEO of a helicopter company. It was a mighty mid-sized business. We did aerial production. So we did film and TV and film and video production from helicopters and fixed wing aircraft and drones. We filmed things like Mission Impossible, Transformers, CSI. We also did air medical transport. So we did patients and organs, hospital to hospital in helicopters. And we also did aerial surveillance. So we did surveillance missions for people like FBI, DEA, other agencies. And at the time, I was 29 years old, and I'm the CEO of this company that made movies, saved lives, and caught bad guys. And I really believed that I was invincible. I'm living the dream, running this helicopter company, and I felt like nothing could hurt me. And then on Friday, September 11th, 2015, I got a phone call. And I got a phone call. It was 4:53 p.m. on Friday, September 11th, 2015. And the voice on the other end of the phone said, "Steve, your business partner's plane crashed." And I found out that my business partner, Alan Perwin, died in a plane crash on a job just outside of Medellin, Colombia. And I didn't believe it, really. I mean, I didn't know what to believe. I was in disbelief, right? I was in disbelief. And after Alan died, I had the honor and privilege of planning his funeral. And I'm not sure, Stephen, if you've ever planned a funeral, but if you have, you'll know that when you audit a person's life, you have the opportunity to understand their legacy, right? When people we love pass away, we want to believe they're in a better place. When people we love have a funeral, we want to highlight the legacy that they've left behind, right? And when we lay people to rest, it gives us this moment to think about our own legacy. And as a young entrepreneur, leader, and executive, I discovered a way to cope with my partner's death. For 200 million people in the world with iPhones, there's this little icon, this little purple icon that you might not notice, right? And if you look at your home screen very closely, you'll find this little purple icon called podcast. And within this unknown digital treasure trove is a plethora of amazing audio content, right? It's a medley of media on demand. You can access it anywhere, anytime. And I started listening to podcasts. And I was telling some of my friends that I was listening to these, podcasts and that they're like audiobooks. And one of my friends said, you should listen to this podcast from my pastor. And I said, dude, what is a pastor? Isn't that like a fake priest? Right? I'm Catholic and I'm bad at being Catholic. I don't even go to church. I don't want to hear your pastor, right? And he said, come on, man, you're listening to all kinds of hocus pocus. Give this podcast a listen. And he shared with me a podcast from a pastor in some town I never heard of called Frisco, Texas. And the guy's name is Matt Chandler. He wasn't even some mega pastor that's like on TV or anything like that. And after listening to my first sermon from this pastor, it was incredible. It was like, I realized I had faith at my fingertips. And as somebody who rebelled from church, I realized that I had this inspiration was available to me inside of my phone. And really, as somebody that didn't want to go to church, I loved that feeling of feeling like I went to church. And every time I listened to that message from Matt Chandler, it's like it penetrated my soul. And these podcasts, they changed my life. And they changed my life when I needed faith for the future. And really, it was confusing to me. Like, why was this so hard to find? Or how come I didn't know about this before? And by the way, who else could benefit from this kind of content? If somebody could create a world with ESPN, the digital destination for sports, why can't someone create a world called Pray.com, the digital destination for faith? And I believed that was my calling, to build the digital destination for faith. And really, that's how Pray.com began. It began with the ability to connect to content instantly through our smartphones, right? It began with this world that's being reshaped by technology like podcasts. And later I found out that, this category of religion is booming and digital faith is booming, right? And I learned from personal experience, it's helping people cope with tragedies, live a better life, believe in hope for the future, right? All these incredible things. So in 2017, I launched Pray.com with 3 incredible co-founders. And today we have millions of customers in more than 183 countries using our website and our mobile app to find comfort, to find hope, to find joy. And, people use Pray.com to learn from pastors. They use Pray.com to play daily prayers and meditations. They use Pray.com to hear celebrities, read the Bible and bring the Bible to life. And it's really just been a special journey. And I'm blessed and grateful and excited to have been able to have such a great calling on my life and have such great co-founders and so many great people and investors that believe in us. People like yourself, people like Greylock, people like TPG, people like Science. Like, we have all these incredible venture capitalists that understand the balance between margin and mission, that understand that we're building a social impact company that's about profit and purpose. And they value faith. They value growing faith. And so that's really the journey of how we got started.
That's so fascinating. It's so incredible. And it's not like I didn't know that. I'm glad we get to share that story with everyone else. But every time I hear your story, it still gives me goosebumps and I love it. So I'm really grateful that we get to share that with everyone else here. And it makes me wonder a little bit, it feels like faith has been a little slow to the digital realm. It's been a little slow to come online and be accessible in a way that video games or that sports or that, other topics are available. Is that gut feeling that I have, is that a fair assessment? And if so, why do you think faith has digitized a little bit slower maybe than some other buckets or industries?
I do think that that's a fair assessment. And, there's a few reasons for that, right? You don't need an app to have faith, right? You don't need technology to have a personal relationship with God or to pray, right? You don't need that. It's something that can enhance that. It's something that can improve that. You need technology to play a video game because a video game is technology, right? So I'd say that's kind of the first and foremost point. Really, the next piece to that is if you're a religious person, right, then you likely follow, a set of healthy habits and patterns and values that have been around for a very long time, right? Things that have been around for hundreds or thousands of years. So by and large, practicing your faith or the act of being religious doesn't necessarily incorporate, augmented reality, right? Or whatever the cutting edge technology of the day is. So it's not something that necessarily lends itself to being part of the early adopter group. I'd say that the third point is, as at least in my experience, in my life experience, my faith has gotten more valuable as I've gotten older. The more life experience I have, the more I value my faith. The deeper I believe in God, the more spiritually mature I become. On the flip side, materialism seems to diminish as I get older, right? So I care about likes on Instagram. I care about them less and less as I get older, right? I care about buying things. I care about buying a new jacket or shoes or a fancy car less and less as I get older. And I think that a lot of that is because we have these things in life, right, that we invent as people to try to give us a sense of happiness or a sense of joy or a sense of purpose, and they can't fill the void. They can't fill the hole that faith can, and that believing in God can, and that having a purpose for your life can. So when we look at technology and we look at who are the early adopters of technology, the early adopters of technology are young people, right? It's the youngest people that tend to adopt technology the earliest. And if you look at the things that young people value the most, faith is not at the top of the stack, right? But if you look at a majority of humans, right, which is people over the age of 25, right, a majority of living humans, if you look at what a majority of humans value the most, faith is at the top of the stack, right? So in the beginning, I said, what's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? And for me, I pray, right? For billions of people around the world, they pray. But if you're 13 years old or 17 years old, you might check your TikTok first, and you might value what's in that TikTok, right? So I think for some of those reasons, faith has been slow to adopt new technology. But, there's different groups that adopt technology at different times. And with a lot of the recent happenings, specifically around COVID and shutdowns, we've seen absolute record adoption. It's been explosive growth.
Yeah, it seems like COVID would have really had a huge impact on what you're doing. I'm assuming you've seen that, right?
It's been a huge impact. We have a freemium product. We have one tier of our product. It's totally free. We call it Pray Radio. It's like church in the background. You can just pop on Pray Radio and listen. It's completely free. We've seen a huge increase in the amount of people and the amount of time spent on Pray Radio. We also have a premium product. We've got these incredible celebrity Bible stories, kids Bible stories. We've got all these premium podcasts. And we've also seen an incredible spike in subscribers on our premium content as well. We have over 1 million subscribers now. So it's been record growth across the board. And Corona and the pandemic, the lockdowns worldwide have contributed to this massive spike.
Yeah, I believe it. And, it's interesting for me as someone, I resonate a lot with what you're saying because I grew up in a household that was heavy on religion and faith. And I got away from that later in life. And then it wasn't until I went through some personal struggles that I found my way back to faith. And it's become a really big part of my life. It's become a big part of my recovery from addiction. It's become a big part of taking care of my own mental health. And, I run a venture investing business, and our focus, our thesis is on mental health. And I believe that spirituality and faith is a big component of wellness. I believe that it fits squarely within my thesis around mental health. I think some people probably raise an eyebrow when they hear me say that, but I feel like faith is going to be and is a big part of wellness and mental health for a lot of people. And I think that what you're doing falls squarely in that bucket, and as much so, or maybe even more so, than just purely meditation.
Yeah, I would say that the technology community and the venture community is just now starting to recognize the value of spiritual health and its interconnectedness with mental health. Just yesterday, Sensor Tower reported the top 5 fastest growing, most successful mental health apps in the App Store. And, it was Pray.com was in there, with Calm and Headspace and a few others. And really, they noted us as having the most explosive growth in Q3. And they consider us now as being part of this mental health category. And so I think, now the technology community and the venture community and investment community, they are starting to see the value of spiritual health as being tied to mental health.
Yeah, I can see that happening too. And it brings up another question. Our podcast is called Stigma. We like to explore that concept. Has there been stigma to overcome when building a faith-based solution and going to market, both, customer facing and or with, fundraising, going to market with investors?
Of course. Yeah, of course. And I think that similar to companies like Calm, right? A lot of people, they didn't quite understand, or they didn't get it at first. And usually when people don't understand something, there's a lot of pushback or there's a lot of negative commentary. And we've had a ton of that. But also there's been plenty of visionary people, right? Really, truly visionary investors and visionary operators, people like yourself, right? People like yourself that see the value in the product and that can use the product and say, hey, this is inherent to me. And as well as people like Josh Ellman from Greylock, Ross Hyatt from TPG, Mike Jones from Science. They got the vision from day one. And so whenever I get the pushback or, whenever I feel like there's stigma, I don't really let that get me down at all. I don't let that hold me back. I really think that example is not the main thing, right? Example is the only thing. So as long as we continue to walk in faith and lead by example, eventually everybody will understand. And I think when somebody's dealing with something where there's a lot of stigma or there's a lot of misunderstanding, they feel like they need to be the teacher. And really, I'm not a teacher, Stephen. I'm not a teacher. I'm a facilitator, not a teacher. There's only one teacher, and that's yourself, right? You have to take responsibility for learning the lesson of what's going on. But what I can do is I can do my best to facilitate, provide people with the accurate information, and really lead by example, right? And eventually the market catches up.
Where do you see the future of digital faith going? I mean, what do you want Pray.com to look like in 3 or 5 years? And where do you see the broader digital faith community going? What could it look like? Where do we find ourselves 5 years down the road?
So our vision is to create a world where everyone leaves a legacy of helping others. That's our vision. It's been our vision since day one. And we do that by building the technology and the tools that enable people to grow faith and cultivate community. So Pray.com, by and large, is about two things: content and community. It's kind of what it boils down to. And we always start with prayer. Prayer is our priority. So there's a million and one ways that we can become the easiest way for you to incorporate prayer into your daily life. There's apps, right? There's widgets. We can build things into Alexa. There's plenty of opportunity for us to help you incorporate prayer into your daily life. And at prayer is the priority. So over the next 3 years, we'll continue to focus on being the easiest way for you to incorporate prayer into your daily life. After that, we think about these two buckets, right? We think about content and we think about community. As it pertains to content, we are building the largest faith-based audio content platform in the world. We're building that digital destination for faith, that ESPN for faith content. We will continue to build out the content catalog to make sure that you can find faith-based content that inspires you to live a better life and expand into all the languages. Today, we're only in English. So we'll expand over the next 3 years into over 50 languages. On the community side, we offer a variety of tools. We offer groups-based tools so that you can share prayers and prayer requests, so that you can share Bible stories and do a Bible study. We also offer donations. So you can make donations to 501c3 religious organizations, and it's dollar for dollar. So we pay the fees on every donation that goes through the Pray.com app. So over the next 3 years, we'll continue to build out all of our community tools until we have, our first 100 million listeners on Pray.com that are using the content and community toolset. So that's kind of what the next 3 years looks like for us.
That's incredible. And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you on behalf of, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, we have a lot of founders who listen to our show. What advice would you have for an early aspiring entrepreneur who wants to build into, not just the mental health space, which is kind of what I focus on broadly, but in the faith space? I mean, where's the white space here for an entrepreneur who maybe has had some similar life experiences to you, and they think, I'd love to build in that space? Is there white space out there? Where can founders be looking?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think that there's unlimited opportunity out there. I think that anything's possible. And really, for me, it came down to what I felt called to do, right? So I believe that God's purpose for my life is to build the digital destination for faith and to build this ESPN for faith content. And really, I knew that I couldn't do that alone. I knew that, I needed support, and I needed a team of people that were willing to help me pursue that vision. And I was blessed to have these 3 co-founders in my life: Ryan Beck, who's one of my childhood friends, who's my CTO; Matt Potter, who I've known since I started my first company, who's our head of strategic partnerships, and Mike Lynn, who I've known since college, who's our CFO. The four of us really believed that we could lean into this vision of building the digital destination for faith. And along the way, there were all these little things that, we thought we were going to do or that we tried that didn't work. And really none of that mattered. What mattered is we believed this was our life's calling. We believed this was our life's purpose. And we had this big vision to build something. And we had each other, really. We had the support of one another. And I think that, to dissect pockets like a market map and say, oh, well, there's this opportunity in giving, or there's this opportunity in a CRM for people for churches that want to get loans. I think that for me, that would have been the wrong way to go after something. I know that every entrepreneur is different, so it's hard for me to say what would be the right answer for other people, but I don't think you're ever wrong for following what you believe is the calling for your life. I think that that's always the best choice.
What did I forget to ask? What should I ask about Pray.com? What's the thing that we should highlight that I just, for whatever reason blanked on and should have brought up here?
I think it's how do my incredible co-founders continue to demonstrate this relentless endurance and persistence with these high standards that I set across the board. I mean, I think that 99% of making any venture work comes down to how well can you care about and care for the people that you're doing it with. I think that business comes down to people. I think people are the asset. And I think that there's probably an infinite number of things that you can achieve with the right group of people. And the magic probably boils down to, how do the people take care of one another? How do the people deal with each other's weaknesses? How do people mend relationships if there's a fracture, right? And if you can do that, and if you can learn how to live into that, I don't know if there's anything that can stop you, really.
That's excellent, man. I love that, and I agree with that. And I'm really grateful that I get to be along for the ride in a little tiny small way. And I'm grateful that you would come on our show and tell your story. And I think it'll not only inform people about what you're doing, but I think it'll inspire folks to get involved in the digital faith community, maybe as an entrepreneur, maybe as a customer, as a consumer, as a participant, as a leader, as a community builder. So I really, really do appreciate you coming on and taking time to do this.
Thank you so much, Stephen. We appreciate you, and I appreciate you believing in the vision and seeing the vision for us and being so early on the investment. And as an investor, it took a lot of courage, really, to jump in that early. And you were so impressive. You flew out to meet us. You offered just infinite support, introductions, and you were first class all the way, Stephen. It's really humbling, and we're so grateful to have you. And I'm so excited that this is going to be the biggest return of your entire fund.
I love it. And I appreciate the kind words. I mean, it's been a long journey to learn how to be an investor. And I've been fortunate to get some mentorship and some advice along the way. And after making mistakes, and some of your investors are some of the folks like Mike that have done that for me and with me over the years. And I'm grateful to get to be a part of it. So thank you for having me, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, Stephen. Anytime.
Thanks again, Steve, for being here, man. I really appreciate it. I think a lot of people will find your story really motivating, inspiring, and insightful. And I'm really grateful for our relationship and for getting to be a small part, like I said, of what you guys are doing. To our listeners, thank you for being here. And please, if you like the content, please hook us up with a subscribe or a like or a review on your podcast platform of choice, and share us with a friend if you would. If you'd like to support us in the content we create here, then you can find us on Patreon as well. We provide additional insights, thought pieces, research, public company analysis there for our loyal supporters. So I'll link to that in the show notes. To the founders out there, don't forget to join the Mental Health Startup Slack community, which you can also find a link to in the show notes. And don't forget to check out the What If Fellowship, which is a program our fund created recently that's designed to help facilitate increased company building within the mental health space. We aim to help mental health founders and entrepreneurs in the mental health space accelerate the process of going from an idea to a real plan to execution and funding. And you can learn more through the fellowship tab on the What If Ventures website or through the link in the show notes. Finally, we want to hear from our listeners. Please do comment on social media and let us know what you liked or what you want to hear more of and what you disagreed with. You can reach out to us on Twitter at StigmaCast. You can find us on Instagram at Stigma Podcast. You can email us info@stigmapodcast.com. We would absolutely love to hear from you. Thank you again for being here. And until next time, stay safe, be well, and thank you for your support.